Hello, my name is Kriostix, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, Case 5, from where we left off last time. I think trial part 2? Yes? And Santa Claus is back, as always. Order, please. Let us resume proceedings. Witnesses, you will now retake the stand. I did this yesterday, and I'm still kind of hazy on what we accomplished. I was getting a little loopy by the end. It's Wario and Waluigi and the Inspector. Looks good. Sador, have an excellent food. And thank you for stopping by. I presume you heard the Defense Counsel Summation Examination. Oh, yeah, Governor. I did, Gov, I did. Mr. and Mrs. Skulkin. Core blimey. Thank you for the lurks, Sador. Always appreciated. This is going to be hard work. Earlier in this trial, you gave the following testimony about your actions after you entered Windybanks. Well, it was bedlam soon, weren't it? It wasn't as it was. Didn't even have time to pull me dukes out me Lucy lockets. Right, sounds like a plan. However, that was a lie. You brothers? I'm not sure if brothers is supposed to be an insult, but okay. Core blimey. On the night in question, you rifled through the items on the victim's counter. We never done nothing of the sort. How did you figure that out? You will now give formal testimony once again. You will tell the court precisely what happened on the night in question, and this time you will tell the truth. Each lie that passes your lips serves to increase the severity of your punishment. That's gonna, cause probably some sort of shards to hurt, man. And that, gentlemen, may deal a crushing blow to your chances of ever seeing the light of day again. Ah. A thought worth pondering, perhaps. Say no more, Gub. We hear you. We'll blab. We'll squeak peach. Yes. Let's go. Alright, we did knock a few things over, but we weren't rifling for nothing. It was when we heard the gunshots, see, it made us both jump, and all of that stuff went flying. Lummy, it did half give me a fright. We was thinking... Oh, boy, I still disagree with the choice of, just, including all this... dialects text. It's just... I don't agree with it. It's so exhausting and it doesn't feel fun to read. The shooter'd come out of the door and get us next, we was thinking. Right. We stuck everything back where he found it and scoppered straight into him in the black. We couldn't have shot the pawnbroker, see, we never even had a chance, did we? Well, we'll see about that. So you admit to the defendant's accusation. You did indeed ransack Mr. Windybank's countertop on the night in question. Not ransack, Governor, no. That's right, Nash, that's right. It's more like we tidied up, yeah. That sounds like a dirty, dirty lie, which I take some issue with. A dirty lie is dirty, you see, and we like things clean, was it not? Yes. And he's doing a ... I believe he might be doing Morse code, to just, convey in code to how much he's going to, cut the witnesses in twain to make sure that they will never again tidy up place, because that's what his disposition sort of looks like, that he's gonna make them have a very not good day, which is fair enough, I suppose. Sorry. By their own admission, these brothers entered the pawnbrokery under dubious circumstances. However, they panicked and fled on hearing the gunshot, having first made good their mess. The way you say it, we hardly sound like roughs at all. We don't, Nash, we don't. Can't make us sound a bit more cutthroat? It can't just be a coincidence that these men showed up at the Windy Banks that night. There's more to their testimony than meets the eye, I'm sure of it. Sounds possible, yes. Let's push on stuff. Illegal entry to the whole truth. Let's go. Alright, we did knock a few things over, but we weren't rifling for nothing. Right. And I don't believe you, not for a second, because that's how we roll in here. It was when we heard the gunshots, see, made us both jump, and all that stuff went flying. Yeah, this. Okay, so just from the top. Hold it! Hold it! If that's the case, then why did you testify to that effect in the first place? Well, you know, we ain't exactly squeaky clean, are we? Well, I mean, then you just need to take a shower and you're gonna be fine. You take a good long shower and think about what you've been doing. It's gonna be all fine. You'll see, right? We ain't, Nash, we ain't. If we admitted to something like that, people would think we was up to no good. Well said, Ringo, me old China. We'd only land ourselves in even more trouble. And in fact, now as a result of lying in your previous testimony, that's exactly what you've done. Landed yourselves in even more trouble. Ah, well, that's rotten luck, says the rotten apple eater. Witnesses. Explain your actions to the court. Why did you ransack the victim's counter? That is a decently good question. We never ransacked nothing. Right, Nash, right. More like we tidied the place up. Sorry. Okay. Heard the gunshot, jump, and all that stuff. Hold it! Hold it! So what you're saying is, the sound of the gunshot shocked you so much, you knocked all those things off the counter. Well, it shocked one of us that much, yeah. This bag of nerves needs to learn to keep his shirt on. Look, it was loud, alright. Blimey, me dead granny would have woken up at that bang. Big bruv here screamed like a blooming baby and fell over on the counter. He knocked over a load of books, a candlestick, and some skull whatnot. That got tangled in some marionette, what knocked over a picture frame, what knocked them scales on the floor. You've really mastered working quietly, then. What a racket. Me granny would have been scared back into her grave at a clatter like that. So in short, the gunshot took you by surprise. And then some. I mean, it was quiet as a mouse, and then suddenly a bam.
Excuse me!
Excuse me! Inspector Gregson, do you have something to add? Like I keep saying, I don't appreciate being lumped in with these scoundrels. No, it's something to add about their testimony. You seem to react just now with what Mrs. Skulkin said. Did it make you think of something? It's probably nothing, of course. I wouldn't even bother to mention it, only... Well, the fact is, cases don't get solved if you ignore the little details. How about you just tell us what's on your mind? As you know, we've brought these fellas into the yard for questioning last night. And the statement they gave then told a slightly different story to what they're saying now. Did it? You claimed you heard the victim shout something out before the gunshot. Might have, Gov, might have. Does ring a bell now you mention it. Granted, it's only a minor detail, but still. I can't help feeling like perhaps you've been a bit sloppy with the testimony, hey fellas. If I discover the witness's testimony has been any more sloppy than it has hitherto proven to be, I shall be forced to bring the very harshest punishment to bear against them. Easy, easy. We'll get it right this time. That's it, yep, it's all coming back to me now. Then speak. Supplement your testimony with whatever details have miraculously returned to your questionable minds, sirs. Haha, right you are, Gov. Just before the gunshot, we heard a voice yelling out, "Gimme that gun." Hold it! Hold it! So in fact you heard the voice and the gunshot almost simultaneously? We did, Gov, we did. Although, I suppose if you're being honest, we heard a kind of wavering voice before the yell and all. If you don't want to get shot, give me that gun. Kind of thing. Uh-huh. A career in acting tragically missed. And where were the voices coming from, could you tell? Of course we could. From the other side of that door behind the counter it was. From the storeroom where the victim was found dead. And the voice you heard, it was that of the victim, Mr. Windybank? On me granny's life, of course it was. Do you know the voice of Windybank? Like, I could believe them that they can, like, discern between the voices of Windybank and Gina in the sense that, you know, large man versus a young-ish lady person, but, Still, like, did they know Windybank by, like, name and voice and such? So that would mean that you both knew Mr. Windybank and the sound of his voice. Yep. Uh-huh. Huh? So that would mean what? What, Nash? What? Any ideas? Yes, Counsel, indeed it would. I'm glad the game caught on that. No, we didn't know the geezer. How am I supposed to deny it when that bloke in all the fancy clubbers giving us the evil eye? I still like the wardrobe quite a bit. If you value your lives, you will ensure your testimony is accurate and true. On me granny's life it is. On his granny's life it must be. Aren't you brothers? So isn't the granny the same person? It's a good job his granny is dead. To summarize then, immediately after hearing the voice of the victim you heard the gunshot, causing you to stumble and upset the items on the counter, scattering them over the shop floor. You make it sound like we're clumsy. Don't forget we tied it up after, like, good little boys. Anyway, the way I see it, the bloke what owned the place was holding a gun, so he should have just fired instead of yelling at the girl. Interesting, hold it. You're saying that Mr. Windybank had a gun in his hands? Oh yeah, bet that was a sight, huh? Them two waving them guns at each other. Must have got pretty heated. Interesting. I mean, just before he shouted out, we heard the geezer say, if you don't want to get shot. Didn't really sound like he meant it, mind. More of an empty threat, you could say. Mr. Windybank was known to keep a revolver on his shop counter at all times, which just sounds like terrible gun safety, I'm just saying. People say that to protect the articles in his keeping, he'd readily put a bullet in someone's head if required. That someone being himself, of course. Good grief, extraordinary devotion indeed, if alarmingly misguided. Well, he certainly sounded like he was really ready to pull the trigger the other night. Only the person he was gonna shoot beat him to it. Cooked his goose proper. Right. Cooked his goose. Come on. Ah, dialects. Hurts. Betty wished he'd squeeze the trigger instead of wasting time shouting, "Give me that gun." And it was directly after those words that you heard the gunshot. It was more or less at the same time. I don't like the word "same time." Was any words uttered after the gunshot? Is my question. Give me that gun. Boom. Yeah, that's okay. Kind of thing. Yes, a career in acting very tragically missed. Then we heard the sound of someone hitting the deck. Why that animation into that line is beyond me, but okay. Before everything went dead quiet. After that, we'd done a slapdash job tidying the place up. Lummy, it didn't half give me a fright. We was thinking the shooter would come out of the door and get us next. That's so much stuff, and yet we're not getting anywhere with this. So far. Hold it! Hold it! So, you didn't try to open the storeroom door then? Not on your life. It went deathly quiet after that, it did. Put the wind right up in me. Right up me? But anyway, the door was locked, weren't it? No way that was opening. Yes, of course, it was locked from the inside, or so we've been led to believe. It was, Gov, it was, from the inside. Right, so we had no way of knowing what was going on in there, did we? I'm kind of wondering, why would the storeroom be locked from the inside, and, like, why would that be a thing? Like, apart from, I don't know, him trying to fortify himself into the storeroom in case of robbers or something? It's kind of odd. Unless there was some other way to get a view of the inside of the storeroom. Like through the keyhole or a spy hole, perhaps. Don't ring no bells, don't light no lights. We had to cut and run before we noticed anything like that. We're still cutting our teeth in this game, see, but one day... we really cut the mustard. Please cut it out. But as we know, behind that door was the victim's lifeless body, with the accused not 2 feet away. Yes, unfortunately. Gina was there unconscious with the gun in her hand. So why was she unconscious to begin with is my next question. Guess we'll get to it at some point. To confirm, would it be correct to say that neither of you set foot inside the storeroom? That's right, Gov, that's right. Couldn't have, even if we wanted to. We stuck everything back where we found it and scalpered straight into them in the black. Hold it! Hold it! Yes, whereupon you fired a shot from your own gun at Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Oh, yeah, we was a bit hasty there. It wasn't as we was. Truth be told, I was already shaking like a leaf when your lot turned up. If you're shaking like a leaf, don't put a loaded gun in your hand. Good advice, miss, good advice. Truth be told, my mind went totally blank. Before your mind goes totally blank, make sure you don't have a loaded gun in your hand. Mental note made, miss. After that, we legged it down the street, but apparently we looked dodgy to the coppers or something, so they clapped the darbies on us like winking. Good God, this dialect writing. It's probably very accurate, but it's exhausting to read. Like, ugh. And after you'd been handcuffed, the police found this revolver in your possession, correct? Well, yeah. But listen, that proves it, doesn't it, huh? We couldn't have shot the pawnbrokers, we never even had a chance, did we? Hold it! Hold it! And why should we believe that? What? Well, because it's true, isn't it? The place was totally empty when we went in. At that time, the victim was already in the storeroom, having been forced to open the door by the accused who had a gun to his head. That is the assumption we're going with so far, but who the hell knows, man? In other words, on the night in question, these two witnesses never even laid eyes on the proprietor of the pawnbrokery, Mr. Windybank. Correct? You've got it, mister. Down to a T. I wonder what the expression of down to a T comes from. Like what's the etymology? Is it like related to like the letter T in the sense that you like dotted the I's and crossed the T's and therefore down to a T, so every T was crossed or something? Or is it like a golf reference of down to a T? I don't know. So the Skulking brothers were never actually encountered Mr. Windybank. Is that really true, I wonder? I mean, for all we know, the girl could have just like picked up the gun and then with the intention of turning around and shooting at the brothers or something. Who the hell knows? That's it? That's the full extent of their testimony. What is it, Bruno? You look very fierce. I could pour you some herbal tea if you're tired. Oh, thank you, but I'm fine. Being such a logical thinker, you'll probably laugh, but I feel as though these brothers are still hiding something important. It's nothing more than a feeling, though, that I've no proof to support it. Well, feelings can be very logical at times. Sorry? People's expressions, the movements of their eyes, their words they choose. You can take all that and your brain will quietly analyze it to come up with a feeling like you described. You've concluded that there's something suspicious about this testimony without knowing why, that's all. I think you should trust your instincts. Iris, thank you. Sometimes I think if she's 10 years older, I must be 5. Well, child genius be child genius. Okay, we've pushed on everything once. That's not always, like, I think this game also has one or two instances of, like, push one thing, like, push everything once and then one more thing later. Like, it's possible, but... Hold it! I think we've seen this before. Yep, all same thing. And this is where we like found all of the important like extra bits, but before the gunshot, y'all give me that gun. The bloke was holding a gun, so he could have just... This thing, probably? I mean, do we have a good photo of, I mean, they're claiming that he was holding the gun, so... I'll safety save. It looks like such an obvious contradiction, so go for it. Unless I'm completely misunderstanding something about this. So... There. You're saying that on the night in question, the victim, Mr. Windybank, was wielding a gun, is that correct? That's it, Gav. You got the picture. That seems deeply unlikely, my dude, or at least a very interesting, strange detail if that is somehow the case. He has, Nash, he has, no question. And yet the photographic evidence from the time of the incident clearly shows that Mr. Windybank was not in possession of a firearm of any description.
Objection!
Objection! You surprise me. Does the defense really intend to highlight evidence that compromises the position of the accused even more? Well, honestly, I just want the truth at this point. And if anything, I will show that bigoted prosecutor boy that I am a man or person of the truth and of reality, and that's that. Furthermore, the defense has failed to establish that the photographic print presented was taken a suitably short time prior to the victim's death. Your chronology is severely lacking, counsel. That is a fair point, but I just didn't think that, like, just showing the crime scene photo with the hole in the person was... I felt the video game logic was to show this one. Yeah, that's right. Too right, Nash, too right. The old geezer could have been about to turn the tables on the girl, huh? Hardly likely. And I'm afraid this won't stand as conclusive evidence. Continue with the cross-examination, counsel, and heed my earlier warning, witnesses. Interesting. So it didn't go nowhere, but I didn't lose, Huh. Okay, so... hold on. That's weird. Like, it was apparently the wrong thing to throw at them, but the game didn't penalize me for it, even though it's usually would. That is... I'll take it, but that's weird, though. I'm not used to that. So what about the crime scene photo, then?
Objection!
So you're saying that on the night in question, the victim, Mr. Windybank, was wielding a gun. That's it, Gov. Picture has the picture. And yet photographic evidence obtained immediately after the incident clearly shows that Mr. Windybank was not holding a firearm of any description. You what? Gordon Bennett, that ain't right.
Objection!
Objection! There can be no question that the victim's revolver was used in the incident. I would remind the court that Mr. Windybank's gun was found at the scene. Not only was it identified as the murder weapon, but it was found in the accused's hand. Yeah, that Tooler used the victim's own gun to finish him off. Give me that gun, boom. Kind of thing.
Hold it!
Hold it! Stay exactly where you are right there. Huh? If the crime had taken place as you colorfully described in your testimony, it would give rise to an undeniable and significant inconsistency in the final moments you just acted out. Goodness, are you sure, counsel? You intrigue me, my learned friend, but let's see some evidence to support your claim. Where's the proof that demonstrates this inconsistency in the witness's portrayal of the victim's final moments? I seem to be a step behind Ruinosuke here, hold on. Okay, what could it be, yeah? Give it a quick look here. Does this show anything interesting? This side, Windybank storeroom. Have we determined, like, where the autopsy report? Surely we can find that. Autopsy report, name, time of death 1 to 130, single bullet wound in upper half of victim's back, no other visible signs of... Oh! Oh, sorry, no. I thought the bullet wound in, but no. Single bullet wound. No, yeah, no. Single bullet wound in upper. So hold on. This is what I'm wondering is that's a very weird way of putting it, because single bullet wound in upper half of victim's back, no other visible signs of trauma. Instant death from a posterior anterior bullet wound to the heart. The bullet entered the body from the back. Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay, yeah. It entered from the back. Yeah, I was on the right track, and then I sort of latched onto the wrong sentence. But yeah, my thought was correct. Yeah. So boomly boom. Autopsy report. Present. Go. According to their testimony, the witnesses claim to have heard a shout of "Give me that gun," followed by the gunshot. Indeed, with the two events happening almost simultaneously, so we've been led to believe. Yes, that's right. Now, if that testimony is true, it would mean that the moment of death, the victim and his attacker would have been facing each other. However, in the autopsy report it clearly states that the victim died instantly after being shot from behind. Ah. So, as I stated before, there is an undeniable inconsistency in your testimony, Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. Gaha! Yes. But it's the God's honest truth. Well, your truth isn't real enough, sorry. Your truth is your truth is fake. It is Nash, it is, when we was shot that night. It is alternative facts, yes. The shopkeeper had a gun in his hand. We saw it with our own bleeding eyes. Did I hear you right just now? You actually saw Mr. Windybank holding a gun. Something like that might have slipped out. Ladies and gentlemen, you have all just heard the admission by these two witnesses that on the night in question they actually saw with their own eyes the victim wielding a gun. Which can only mean that despite their testimony to the contrary, the Skulkin brothers must have encountered the victim in person. Nasham. Order. Witnesses, explain yourselves at once. Well, the thing is, it weren't supposed to, It would seem that my previous warning fell on deaf ears. I made it quite clear that false witness would be the death of you. Am I to understand that you replaced the untruths of your original testimony with renewed lies? I'm ever so sorry, Governor. Truth is, we, cut it out, Naz, cut it out. If we blab now, you know what'll do to us. He? What are they talking about? Let me make your position here perfectly clear. You will talk, there is no other option available to you. Bruv, come on, the game's up. But you'll have our guts for garters. And in case it hasn't quite sunk in yet, no matter how hard you try to hide it, the truth will come out. On the night in question, it is now apparent that you brothers met face-to-face with the victim. I demand that you testify again to explain the precise circumstances under which this meeting took place. Well... Do we have to? On pain of death. I suggest you make yourselves fully aware that this is your very last chance to tell the truth. Alrighty, let's go. Alright, so we just got inside the gaff and heaved a sigh of relief when the geezer showed his mug. Give me that gun, he bellowed, and then he flew at us like he was possessed, though we had it. For an old geezer, the bloke was strong as an ox. He chucked me over the counter. I pulled my gun on him, and then he legged it through that door into the back room. We never had nothing to do with killing him, that's all what happened, I swear. Yeah, but who will do bad things to you is the question. So you're now telling us that the moments before the victim was killed in the storeroom, you in fact encountered him in the main part of the shop. Well, yeah. Sorry. Well, you're on naughty list for Christmas, that is for sure. We find ourselves at an interesting juncture. This changes matters considerably. But honest, Governor, this time, Nash, this time, we ain't got nothing more to hide. That's also, this continues to be a lie. And surely we cannot trust anything these two say. Like, we can try and grill them for details, I suppose, but, like, they are as unreliable as any witnesses ever have been. Very well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord, this is it. The moment I've been waiting for. Is it, though? Alright, so got inside, sign of relief, showed his mug. Hold it! When you say geezer, I presume you mean the victim and proprietor of the shop, Mr. Windybank. Who else? Sorry, I mean that's right. We was keeping close eye to the entrance to the gaff, obviously. But we never thought no one was gonna come out of the back room like that. The back room being the pawnbrokery storeroom. Yeah, that must be where he popped up from, only the place he could have been. So it would seem the victim was already in the storeroom when these brothers entered the premises. Which means Ginny must have been in there at that point as well. But that doesn't make sense, does it? If Gina had threatened Mr. Windybank into the storeroom with her at gunpoint, then why would he have emerged from the same room all alone when the brothers arrived? Oh, I don't know. Did you see the accused at that time? What, that Maltuller? Couldn't tell ya. No way, Cobber, we had bigger fish to fry then. I mean, the old geezer just lost it. Give me that gun, he bellowed, and then we flew at us like he was possessed, though we had it. Hold it! You mentioned that Mr. Windybank shouted those words in your previous testimony, too. However, you claimed that you heard him yelling them on the other side of the storeroom door. Oh, did we? But the truth is, he was shouting those words at you, wasn't he? Well, yeah. Was the victim Mr. Windybank wielding a gun at the time? Was he ever? Blimey lummy, a great ugly barrel he had, pointed straight at me frontispiece. Okay. So what you're saying is, you definitely saw Mr. Windybank with the gun at that time, is that right? It is, Gov, it is. Spot on. Then all of a sudden he came at us, he did. It was bedlam. I didn't know who was going for who. You were clearly all going for each other. Like Nash said, we thought we had it. I mean, why is everyone Nash to him? That's really... For an old geezer, the bloke was strong as an ox. He chucked me over the counter.
Hold it!
Hold it! Yes, I noted that you mentioned the counter in your previous testimony, too. Well, yeah, of course we did. He knocked over a load of books, a candlestick, and some skull whatnot. That got tangled in some marionette, what knocked over a picture frame, what knocked him skulls on the floor. So in fact, it wasn't the sound of the gunshot that shocked you and made you knock those things off the counter. Well, Big Bruv here went flying over that counter like a gunshot, I tell you, then the old geezer pinned him. Was there a 1, 2, 3, and did a referee from the WWE come in and say that he won? He did, Nash, he did. If you hadn't been there, the bloke would have flattened me like a blooming pancake in seconds. At the time in question, the alarm was raised at the local police station via a secret cable from the pawnbrokery. There is a button under the counter used to activate it, which was presumably pressed by the victim. That's right, when the brothers fled the scene and back onto the street, they ran straight into the arriving police, didn't they? Poor Mr. Windybank, he did everything he could to protect his shop. I pulled my gun on him and then he legged it through that door into the back room.
Hold it!
Hold it! Were you intending to shoot Mr. Windybank? No, never. I was just, you know... looking out for me bruv, weren't I? He was being flattened, don't forget. By a man whose shop was being burgled, yes. And then the man fled into the storeroom when you pointed your gun at him, is that it? Yeah, that's it. He shoved me away, then ran off through that door and shut himself in. There's something about that last remark. Something that doesn't quite ring true. I wonder why Mr. Windybank ran away into the storeroom. What? Well, according to what everyone's saying, Ginny was in there waiting for him with a gun. Yes, that's right. Gina allegedly used Mr. Windybank's gun to threaten him and force him to open the storeroom door. In which case, how did the gun end up in Mr. Windybank's hands again? Also, just saying, like, Windybank's first reaction to everything was to point a gun at his own head, you know? To, like, end his life in order to, like, retain his honor as a pawnbroker or whatever, right? If he indeed has the conviction to do that, then pointing a gun at him wouldn't really do much to force him to do anything. Like, he would just like, well, okay, then go ahead and shoot and I will never ever open the storeroom door for you. Like, he would have ended his life anyway, because of the notion that someone would have gotten into the storeroom and taken stuff from there. Like, you know. It's a bit of a dark logic, but that is what he kept on going at, so, you know. I have no idea, but that is strange, isn't it? This little inconsistency could be insignificant. I should make a mental note of it. Look, the point is, me and me bruv here... That's right, Nash, that's right. Me and me bruv here... never had nothing to do with killing him. That's what happened, I swear.
Hold it!
Hold it! You say you had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. Nothing, Gov, nothing. The old geezer went and shot himself in the back room, didn't he? Locked it was from the inside. We know it was, cause we tried to open it. But it's a decent door, that one, good and strong, wouldn't budge an inch. So in the end, the situation remains unchanged. Inside the storeroom with the pawnbroker there was only one other person. The sole person who could possibly have shot the victim, the accused, Miss Gina Lestrade. Out of curiosity, how old was Gina again? 17? Yeah, is that still considered a minor in like 1900s, 1890s? In terms of, like, you know, homicide? Just wondering. It would indeed appear so. What say you to that, Counsel? I don't know. Was there anyone else apart from Gina who could possibly have shot Mr. Windybank? I don't think such a possibility has yet opened itself to being a thing. And I don't want to lose... I can do a safety save, but I don't think this is like a game-ending question or something, but again, sometimes the passive route is the sage one, you know? He's right, Gina's the only one. There was no one else in the room. With an attitude like that, Bruno, it will be all over. Sorry, but again, in the mainline game, especially the first 3, there are multiple moments where you need to answer the quote-unquote bad way, meaning the, defeatist path, meaning the, admit to what the prosecutor is saying in order to actually continue the game, because if you don't, then you'll be asked to, either the game just says F you and takes life away from you, or you'll be asked to present evidence in a scenario where there is nothing to present, and that takes life from you again, like either or. And then somehow it's just, in some cases, instead of just continuing the game, like into the next sort of rotation of the puzzle, or the beginning of the same puzzle, instead there might be a follow-up question into the passive route, which then is the point of like, ha 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 ha. So, Now a 10-year-old is reading the expression on my face. We just don't have that many. Wide-eyed, sweating, smug, and happy. That's about it. She's referring to the animation of the game. Oh boy. Surely there's more than that, isn't there? Anyway, I think I might want to consider some other possibilities here. Or rather, I think you have to, otherwise we won't get anywhere. Or rather, you won't get anywhere. I'm just here for moral support, remember? And it's at times like this that I really appreciate it the most. So that's all these brothers are willing to reveal this time, is it? They're still hiding something, don't you think? Yes, I'm sure of it, and not just a minor detail either. It was almost certainly because of these two that poor Mr. Windybank, well, you can't let them get away with it, Bruno. I know, but I get the feeling that there's even less evidence at my disposal this time to prove that they did it. We've come so far. Now it's time to finish them off. Are you allowed to carry a blood gun into the courtroom, I wonder? Is that just like they're just okay with it and we're gonna just move on? Is that what we're doing? Like, that's fine with me, but, Well, I'll do my best. Okay. So I think the game like hinted something into this one. But hold it. Intending to shoot, looking out from above. Being burgled. The thing is, can I, like, prove to them that, like, do an objection with, like, Gina's presence or something to this? Like, that's a little... It strikes me as a leap of logic in the game's mechanics to just, like, throw Gina's face into this notion. I don't know. I mean, I can give it a shot, but... Objection! Nah. I'll try the crime scene photo as well. Nah. Yeah, it felt like a shot that wouldn't really land, but I just feel, you know. Okay, so if that doesn't do anything, then let's, I don't know, start placing like profiles to this and start doing with that. I don't know. Well, I mean, again, it is the last case, so I really can't complain about the fact that it's a difficult one. I'm not sure what to do here, but Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. What? What's that look for? From the moment you admitted that you encountered the victim face to face that night, the course of this trial has changed completely. It did? What's your point, my learned friend? The question we must answer is, who could have shot Mr. Windybank? And it is the belief of the defense that the defendant is not the only possible answer at all. Maybe it was Gregson all along! You have my attention. In that case, let us return to this plan of the premises. The victim was killed in the storeroom, which was locked from the inside. It could have been shot through the door. Those are the facts. So pray, what other possible answer to the question of who shot the man could there be? Counsel, if you must now provide answers to the court in respect of 2 conundrums. 2, my lord, to twice as many changes to be right, maybe. Indeed, namely. From what location did the culprit shoot the victim? I believe it was the looky hole in the door. There was one, right? And furthermore, where was the victim at the time? Understood, my lord. Are you alright, Bruno? I'm not entirely sure, but there's one thing I'm sure about. If I can prove that there's a credible new alternative to what happened, it would change Gina's prospects hugely. I would use the word greatly, but we'll take it. So now, time for some clarity. Show the court on this plan the answers to the questions posed by his lordship. If you believe someone else could have killed the victim, indicate from where that person could have fired the gun. There.
Take that!
Take that! The defense believes that the culprit could have shot the victim from this location here. And in answer to the second question, assuming the culprit fired from the location indicated, where was the victim at the time? On this side of the door.
Take that!
The culprit shot the victim from outside the storeroom. Continue. The only thing that I'm not extremely sure about is the like the trajectory of like a gently rising. Then again, I've seen many CSI episodes where the trajectory of the bullet has been confused because the victim was not standing up at the moment of being shot. Like maybe he was prone and then he was shot essentially downward through the door hole into his back. So that would work, because then it would go quote-unquote upward in his body because he was being prone. Like this is, you know. Died instantly from a bullet wound to his back. Looking at the stain of blood on the storeroom floor, it doesn't appear that the body was moved after that, which tells us that he was almost certainly shot while he was in the storeroom. However, the crucial point is, where was the shooter when the fatal bullet was fired? So you are adamant that the shot was fired from outside the storeroom. Well, according to the Skulking brothers' earlier testimony, I pulled my gun on him, and then legged it through that door into the back room. If Mr. Windybank ran away through the door, we have to assume that the door was open at the time. Ah! It was at precisely that moment when the victim was fleeing for his life that these brothers had the perfect opportunity to shoot the man in the back once he was inside the storeroom. Ah! Come to think of it, do you remember what the prosecutor said at the start of the trial? Moving on to the findings of Scotland Yard's coroner, his report states that the bullet entered the body on a rising diagonal trajectory. It means the victim was likely shot by someone who was significantly shorter in height than himself. Poor man, shot while he was running as fast as he could to safety. Ah, of course, he would have been leaning forward as he was running away. I think, like, that's also not a terrible idea, but I'm thinking could have been even prone, but still, we haven't proven beyond any notion that the door just wasn't open, they weren't in there, and they just shot him. Like, we have no proof that the brothers were not in the storeroom. None. So, you know. Like, the notion of them never getting in there is from their testimony, which, like, we can't trust anything they say. So, you know. So even if the bullet was fired horizontally, it would still have entered his body on an upward trajectory. So the culprit isn't necessarily someone shorter than Mr. Windybank.
Objection!
Objection! I'm sure my learned friend can't have forgotten that the storeroom door was found closed and locked from the inside. You claim the victim was shot as he fled into the room. Do you also claim his corpse was dexterous enough to turn the key in the lock? No, but Gina would have. But, what if someone else locked the door? Yes, there's someone else who could have locked the storeroom door. Is that so? Very well then, counsel. Present your hypothesis to the court. In the scenario just described, the defense decision is that the victim was shot from outside the storeroom. In which case, who shot and locked the door from the inside? Well, that would be this lady here.
Take that!
Obviously, the person who locked the door was the only other person inside the storeroom at the time, the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade.
Objection!
Objection! That's absurd. Well, why would it be? If Windybank was shot while entering the room, Gina would have wanted to close and lock the door to keep herself safe. And maybe even, like, that Windybank wouldn't get shot even more. So, not absurd at all. You're suggesting that the accused deliberately engineered the sealed room. For what possible reason? Such actions would only serve to tighten the noose around her neck. I'm inclined to agree, I must say. Well, I mean, what are you doing? You're idiots. If a person sees someone being shot while they're running into the room, you're gonna close the door to prevent the shooters from getting into the room. What's wrong with you? Ah, yes, that's a tricky one. No, it isn't tricky. What do you mean tricky? That's the simplest, like, in the scenario we've described, that's the most, like, typical, understandable human reaction. Close the door because bad stuff behind the door. What? Half-baked notions have no place in my courtroom, counsel. Remember that, please. But of course you would have locked it. See, Iris realized. What? How come these supposedly not idiots don't realize the simplest of like logics here? Like that is a very weird beat in the writing here. Like, why would? It almost goes without saying, doesn't it? It does. Yes. Why does everyone drop 500 points of their IQ all of a sudden? Like, what? Into negative 400, yes. Like, that it is that much of a dumb thinking. Like, what? Like, it's thinking so dumb that the brain, like, folds into itself so much it creates, like, a negative space of brain. Like, it's so dumb. Well, if I was Ginny in that situation, I know I would have blocked the door as quickly as I could. I mean, those two burglars had just fired a gun in her direction, hadn't they? Oh yes, obviously. Well, obviously, yes. Before the two brothers arrived, Mr. Lestrade and Mr. Windybank were in the storeroom together. Now, I don't know what went on between them at that time, but at some point, Mr. Windybank must have heard the intruders breaking into his shop and left the storeroom. Intruders, eh? That's us, bruv. If your theory is correct, that would leave the accused alone in the storeroom. Yes, it would. Then, probably only moments later, the victim fled back to the storeroom door, hoping to escape danger. Bang! Yes. Hit in the back by the bullet, Mr. Windybank fell to the floor where he was just inside the storeroom. And what we have to ask ourselves now is, what would the defendant have done in that moment? I see where you're going with this. Outside the storeroom was a terrifying killer who had just murdered Mr. Windybank. As soon as that thought struck Mr. Lestrade, she slammed the door shut and locked it, in order to save her own life.
Hold it!
Hold it. But I mean, we ain't the one who's done it. We ain't, Gov, we ain't. You gotta believe us. I mean, come on, we never shoot no one. Well, you did, though. You shot Hurley. That we know. That's blatantly untrue. I know for a fact that you would, because before my own eyes you shot Mr. Hurley Sholmes. There is only one logical conclusion here. Mr. and Mr. Skulkin, your brothers had every opportunity to have been the true perpetrators of Mr. Windybank's murder. Cool. Can we, like, just lock them up and then call it a day? I think we've solved the puzzle, yes? Well, honestly, probably not, because I think there was a third person in the store for one. The person who they said that was gonna, quote, wear their insides as garters or whatever. Although they did say it was he, so why would he use garters, or am I misunderstanding the word? But still, that is the reality of what we're doing. That was amazing, Runo. All the members of the jury seem to be firmly on our side now. Well, that's a start. But then again, the jurors are about as stupid as people can get, so, you know, if it comes up that instead of apples, the two brothers there, like, maybe fish and chips, they'll instead realize that, oh, well then, therefore, the Gina must be guilty, because so yeah. I know, first time ever, and probably the last. Well, I think you've done it. Surely they'll have to give a verdict of not. Wouldn't get so far. Gehehe. It's been a while since I've seen him laugh, I think. That's an interesting noise. Gehehe. What's with the gehehe? Can you elaborate? An admirable effort, my learned friend. What's this now? He's laughing? You find the situation amusing, Lord Vantiques. I myself find the defense's argument most persuasive. I dare say... I wonder if Van Zeeks did it. Maybe that's the play. Such chicanery is the bread and butter of the street performers in your provincial eastern nation. But such blatantly malicious conjuring tricks amount to nothing more than inexcusable pettifoggery here. Those are some words, my dude. What? The hypothesis you put forward so ostensibly credibly cannot and will not stand. Because, you see, it contains a fatal flaw. Your face contains a fatal flaw. Right there. A fatal flaw? Do you mean to tell me that you're unaware of your logic's failing? My dude, your logic has failed multiple times over in the times we've fought you, so, you know, glass houses, man. I say, Lord Van Zeeks, might be an idea to explain this bally conjuring trick or whatever it is that put the troops onto the ground, huh? The fatal flaw in my learned friend's argument is really very simple to understand. Assuming you're not too dim-witted to count bullets. By George, count bullets? Oh dear. I was wondering about that, like, didn't we... But, like, wasn't it a thing that both guns were shot once and only once? But then I was wondering, like... Do we know that the brothers' gun was shot only once? It's been a day since I played the last bit, and I'm like... Was it, like, proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was shot only once? Or what? Like, can we trust that notion of only being shot once? He noticed then. What's everyone talking about? Again, Ruinosuke, come on. Counsel. Yes, sir. Tell the court how many bullets were found at the scene of the crime. Two bullets. Correct. The first, that which hit the victim in the back, ending his life. And then the second, that which struck the detective, Mr. Hurley Sholmes, on his arrival at the scene. Okay, so let's put it this way. Maybe in the tussle in the storeroom, they struggled, and they took Windybank's gun. Then, what happened was that they shot Windybank indeed when he went in the storeroom. Gina closed the door, but and they had indeed used Windybank's gun to shoot Windybank. Gina closed the door, then through the head window, whatever, they threw the empty gun into the room. Gina apparently grabbed that gun, maybe not realizing it would be empty. And then, fainted from the blood or whatever. From seeing the blood or blah. I don't know. Then, they still had their own gun, and then upon escaping, they shot Hurley Sholmes with their own gun. Indeed, the defense presented a picture showing the damage caused by the second bullet earlier in the proceedings. The bullet which injured Mr. Sholmes appears to have passed through his body to strike the calendar. Are we sure that there was not an extra bullet inside Sholmes, I wonder? Just like thinking out loud with possibilities. Your lordship's understanding is correct. Furthermore, we know there are two firearms involved in the incident. The revolver belonging to the victim, Mr. Windybank, and the Skulking Brother revolver. There's also the third option that there might be more revolvers, because again, they mentioned a person they can't, like, who will, punish them if they tell. Maybe he also had a revolver and he has a million billion bullets in it, like, who the hell knows? And the evidence shows that a single bullet was fired from each gun. How do you know that there was only one bullet from each gun? I'll believe Windybank gun because of the lore we know behind it, but this one? Like... What if they reloaded the gun in between, and then shot Hurley and then didn't reload after that? Like, that's... I don't like that one. I don't like... That logic doesn't sound flawless to me. Yes, indeed it does. A single bullet from each. No, I don't like that. Doesn't sound... Now then, my learned friend. You yourself told the court only moments ago that these two brothers shot Mr. Hurley Sholmes right before your eyes. Yes, I did. Oh my goodness, I think you'll find that if a single bullet that was fired from the brothers' gun hits Mr. Sholmes, it means Windybank not shot by same gun. Stop, only one bullet stop. Exactly. Yes, this Nipponese street performer presented an ostensibly credible argument. However, it was never anything more than a diversionary trick with no hope of standing up to scrutiny. Don't falter the... no, don't do that. Don't be so dramatic about that. Like, you're only hurting your own chances if you're being so dramatic about being a little bit off the details, you know? Like, that is just, like... That is not the sensible way of doing just any of this. Like, if you're mistaken, just, like, keep calm and collected, keep thinking, and then come up with an alternate version of the events to fit the, evidence in question. Which I feel like I did.
I never asked for this.
Sens, thank you for the host. Much appreciated. Thank you. Popping in real quick to say hi and give a host. I'm currently watching the other streams to get caught up. Oh, goody. And again, all of these will also be on YouTube, hopefully pretty soon. So if any of them, like, get, you know, because Twitch holds VODs, I think, 2 weeks. So if you happen to miss any of them on the long run, they'll eventually all be there as well. But much appreciated though. I'm hoping to get this case and therefore the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, the first game, done today. So fingers crossed. It's a long case, so who's going to be sure? But that's the dream, right? Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging the dregs. Who's gonna clean that up, and do they pay him extra? Like, I mean, okay, we've already established that all the well-off people have their own servants, or at least a servant, so I'm sure Van Zeeks has one, but is he gonna always just clean up his glass messes, or what? Dregs of this hallowed nectar into the public gallery. Hallowed nectar, just like a priest, you know, bless your wine, or what? Does it come from a monastery, though? That might make it hallowed, I suppose, in a way. Lord Van Zeeks. But this court needs to open its eyes. About the fact that I've beaten you twice, and you've always been, you know... Well... One of those times you've been accusing an innocent person. It seems like McGilded was the killer, but I'm considering how labyrinthine the logic sometimes gets with these ones. Even with the information we have now of the McGilded case, I still keep an open mind about, like, maybe it was, you know, Jesus. Who the hell knows? But this court needs to open its eyes. The accused, Miss Gina Lestrade, is no ordinary little girl. Despite her young years, she can regrettably no longer be described as a juvenile. I do believe... I'm now thinking is this legal system 16 and over or 18 and over in that? Because in Finland, people tend to be considered juvenile up until 18 in, like, every way. Like, you know, proper car driving, you know... drinking beer and whatever. Not strong alcohols, like not spirits, but anything that's less than 20% alcohol is good for 18 and up. Like 16 years old in Finland means not much, but I'm trying to remember if 16 years old is the limit for some sort of legal stuff, but I think it's still juvenile up until 18 though. I think how it is that it's under 15 or under 12 or something that has no legal, like, what's the word? Legal responsibility about their own actions. That might be 12. And then 12 and 15 is like a weird area of like, I'm not sure, but I think 15 to 18 might be juvenile, if I'm remembering this right. I'm not sure, though. I'm not a legal expert of Finnish law. I'm just, like, that's how I remember from some of the news I've read every once in a while. But nonetheless, like, 17 juvenile in the literal sense, I kind of would, though. No, the person in the dock is far from a law-abiding citizen. That much is true, but that's a different thing, though. She's had a past riddled with criminal conduct. Has it been proven in a court of law? Does he have conviction? She have convictions on her? Because I'm not sure that she might not. The truth is, the accused broke into the pawnbrokery on the night in question with loathsome intent. As you can see beyond doubt in this print, which depicts her threatening the victim with the murder weapon. Critically speaking, that might not be the case, but it looks bad. I'll give you that. And I have here in my possession one more piece of evidence the prosecution wishes to present. I think you're supposed to do this before the trial, because I think that is I think what you're doing is a mistrial right here, my dude. Because you're supposed to tell us from the get-go what's the evidence. You know, just so we're clear on this one. That disc. I'll be taking that, whatever it is, of McGilded's down to the yard, thank you very much. No, don't give it to him, it's mine, that is. Mine! I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now. It is true enough? Yes, that music box disc, McGilded's music box disc. The very day before the hateful murder of Mr. Windybank. I'm not sure it was hateful in the literal sense, but I get your meaning, though. Like, I think there's a different definition for, like, hate crimes, right? So hateful murder would be under that, and I don't think McGilded was murdered because of his, what's the definition, like, race, sexual orientation, religion, something. Like that, you know. With the accused attempted to make off with his article, which clearly doesn't belong to her, and with none of the subtlety of a pickpocket, I might add, but by brute force and brazen impudence. Good gracious. Make no mistake, any sympathy of the accused for the accused on account of her years is misguided and dangerous. I would like to point out as well, though, that Van Zieks keeps accusing us of, like, parlor tricks and such. He's apparently, though, really big into, like, appealing to both the judges and the jurors' emotions, into, like, painting a picture with stuff we've already seen over and over, which is not beyond what happens in the courtroom, mind you, I believe. But at some point you need to just stay on the facts and keep then continue saying stuff that is actually either relevant or new or so on, like to in the Ace Attorney sense, to not be quote unquote parlor tricks, you know. I've witnessed. I think I've mentioned this before. I've witnessed a couple of court sessions in my time, like two. It was a traffic incident of, like, speeding and whatever, and the other one was physical assault. There was some theatrics, especially in the other one, because, you know, it was a person versus a person kind of a case. So there is some theatrics in there and stuff, like, especially involved, like, in trying to make the sort of the person who sued the thing try to make her look less credible. I'm trying to, like, remember the English word for that, but, you know, not the defendant, but the other one. The accuser, let's say, and not the accused. So that does happen by a lawyer. I saw it happen, which was I felt very, very television-y, which I found was an interesting little detail. Like, even the judge was like, okay, let's calm down, let's just not yell, there's no reason for this, come on. It was quite odd. But yeah, like it looked like the lawyer had seen too much TV or something. It was weird. There are no depths to which this girl would not stoop if pushed, no crime she would not commit. I disagree on that point though. She does not seem a homicide person, not at all. Again, that's just me thinking and not knowing, but as much as I know her and have talked to her, she seems like very much a pickpocket and unreliable, but not a violent criminal, mind you. The court forgets that fact at its peril. I see. I think it would be prudent to take this music box disc into evidence, counsel, as a grim testament to the defendant's character. Hold it! Lord Van Zeek, say, Inspector Gregson, what? Yes, Inspector. We had a meeting yesterday at the yard with the prosecution service, and, I think it was agreed that the disc wouldn't be used as evidence. What's this all about? Why is the inspector acting strangely? That's the first time he said anything to Van Zeeks at all. I'm unaware of any such meeting. But those were the instructions right from the top. The government bigwigs were insistent. Inspector, I am the prosecutor and I alone determine how to present my case. I would have to assume that he is the prosecutor, as in the head prosecutor of the case, so probably yes. That sounds about right, yeah. You're, like, I don't think that, like, you know... I think, like, let's say again, different law systems, different things, but there might be like a, you know, Department of Justice or a Minister of Justice or whatever who might, like, you know, give direction on how they think this should go, or how he should act, or how he should, like, what evidence should be presented or whatever, as like a suggestion maybe. But I don't think they can even like command a prosecutor to do one thing or another, not like directly. I mean, they could have some repercussions for that, but like indirect ones, I think, if they didn't obey. So, like, I'm trying to think that there has been cases where like lawyers and prosecutors have resigned in the Americas because the DOJ was telling them to drop the case or whatever. Like, there was some political stuff recently about that. Like, where the DOJ was telling the prosecutors to drop a case because it was, like, politically not, like, you know, essentially because, well, we don't want them to be prosecuted because they're you know, pro-Republican or whatever. So, yeah, and then they resigned. So that much there is a thing, though. I'm not sure. So, yeah. The prosecution wishes to proceed with submitting this disc as evidence, my lord. Indeed, bailiff. A metal disc used to play music in a mechanical music box. On the reverse side is a note that reads for McGilded. The prosecution has established the accuser's motive. I mean, it's not much of an evidence based on anything much. Like, it's just a music disc with some different guy's blood on it, but... Opportunity and baseness of character. There is nothing more to add. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I await your informed decisions and rest my case. I don't think you actually will rest your case, though. There's a number of trials to be done, though. Although I wonder if there's going to be another defendant in this thing, because the trial is going to be really, really long. I don't believe it. I had the jury on my side for once, and for all of 5 minutes. We've been at this for more than 5, but that's because I'm slow. Oh dear, it wasn't even for 5 minutes, Runo. Oh yeah, it was. We have done, I don't know, 10? My lord! I wonder if I might say something at this point. Proceed, Mr. Foreman. Been stumbling about in a bit of a fog up to now, if truth be told, but all of a sudden... The answer is wholly obvious to me and my men. There's only one thing for it. Okay. I've mentioned multiple times how the jury system is stupid. I don't think it's good. It's a good system. And this is more anything. I know this is like a caricature or whatever, but this just sort of underlines my baseline fears of what it would be, because these people just like turn like windmills, even though since the last moment that they were all enough leaning not guilty to learn more info, there's been zero extra evidence added to incriminate Gina. Like, all there's been, well, remember, she's a pickpocket though. Oh, right, guilty. Ha! Ugh, come on. Oh no. Very well, the court will hear from the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please present your leanings as to defendant's culpability?
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
And I continue to give my criticism of the game's like game mechanical system of this jury system, where the guilty means nothing. Like, it's played up as the big dramatic, oh no, but it means nothing. It only means that we need to do a summation examination again, where it's a fun mechanic. I like the mechanic of pitting the jurors' statements against each other. It gives a fresh new thing into the court, puzzles. That's a good thing. Adding a bit more, variety to it, even if it makes the court sittings a little longer than they maybe should be. Like, the game is a little bloated in length. I have to, like, I've said that before as well. But like, leaving that positive aside, or even keeping it in mind, really, this does result in this field, this like scenario where there is no longer a feel of threat from the court itself to go, that something bad's gonna happen. Like, in the mainline games, it's not super common, but every once in a while in the mainline games, especially 1, 2, and 3, if I remember right, there are these moments where the judge is just about to do a guilty verdict, right? And something happens. Like, hold it! What about this thing? It has some drama to it, because the judge's gavel is like, that's the thing, yeah? And only once, I think, in the mainline 3 games at least, and I think it's the same, it hasn't happened again, I think, in 4, 5, and 6. If it has, it's been there only once as well, total, I think. I can remember one instance in the first 3 games total where the judge said guilty, and then because of reasons, the trial actually continued again. But only once. So it didn't fully deflate the judge's gavel as that big, like, dramatic thing to be afraid of, in as the gameplay mechanic, right? In here, the judge doesn't rule guilty, not guilty, meaning that gavel's gone. And then the whole thing is replaced by this jury system where in every case, multiple times over, you get the full guilty verdict. Which means nothing anymore. Because it just means it changes the puzzle a bit. So the entire drama and weight of the be afraid of a guilty verdict, I realize the goal is always to go not guilty, and guilty would be game over and, failure. But there was still a small sense of, like, a dread to, like, we can't get a guilty verdict. Here, the guilty means nothing. It's just, the jurors say all guilty twice or thrice every trial, and it means nothing. The drama is all gone from it. Like, I like the mechanic of pitting the statements. That's fun. But it loses a big chunk of drama because of it, though. Because guilty means nothing anymore, and there's no judge gavel to be afraid of with that. Ugh. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. Well, we've eliminated nothing. There's another person in the crime scene for one, which we've heard of, and you did not pick up on it. That's one. It could be the white-hatted person. Just saying. And we have no proof that the brothers were not in the storeroom. I realize I'm not a big fan of proving negatives, but these games always are. And we have no proof that there was no one else in that place. None. Only that at some point Gina locked the door. Probably. Or Gina likely locked the door to save her life, you know. So, this is flimsy as hell. This wouldn't hold in any system apart from like some sort of a kangaroo court, you know. That's my line. I wrote that for Hurley. How dare he use it against us? Don't worry, Iris. I don't think we're finished yet. There's still more to this case than we realize. There must be, because there's one thing that I'm absolutely certain of. Gina didn't shoot Mr. Windybank. That's beyond any doubt. Very well. We'll proceed with the second summation examination of the day. Even the judge doesn't even bother to ask us about the summation examination. That's how commonplace this has gotten. Remember, in our first case in Britain, the summation examination was this sort of like ancient thing that no one's done in 10, 20, whatever years. Because whenever the jury was all guilty, then they're all guilty, bum, then done by, right? We're in our third trial in Britain in just over 2 months, I think, right? And the judge is so over the system too that he said like, he didn't even bother anymore to ask like, you know, is there gonna be a summation examination? We didn't need to demand one. He said like, the judge is like, yeah, there's gonna be another one. It's again all guilty. It means nothing. Even the judge is now saying that all guilty means nothing. Come on. It just doesn't feel right, you know? Mr. Foreman, are you and the other jurors ready? Garradeb squadron is primed and ready for action, sir. Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have now determined the defendant to be guilty. Alright, let's go. Once a rogue, always a rogue, I say. No. Different breed to us law-abiding citizens. Nope. Especially if you're a pickpocket who does that for a living. That's a very different motive than, lol, I'm evil. So no. As only 2 bullets were found at the scene, I would say the whole case is done and dusted. Nope. That's also not true. You don't need a stereoscope to see the truth here. Every which way you look at it, it was the pickpocket. No, that's also not the case. I never imagined that simple operation would cause me such grief. The accused attempted a theft on the previous day. I can see I'm in for a busy day ahead. When has this come up? I'm ballistics expert. I have seen many shootings. There is nothing I do not know about guns. Okay. I want to push on Juror 6 for once. And let's see. It would seem there is little remaining room for doubt. Have to admit I was rather bowled over by the argument put forward by the chap in black. But when that fell apart like a house of cards, I saw that I'd jolly well been hoodwinked. Well, no more. The whole courtroom is turning against me. It's normal. It's not fair, Iris. That prosecutor's being mean. Just because Ginny does some things she shouldn't have done in the past, that doesn't make her a murderer. Allow me to savor this fruity vintage while I savor the spectacle of your fruitless debate on the matter. Here's to the truth coming out eventually. Interesting thing to say, meaning you don't think it's out yet. Which I think he knows. I think he has a like eye on the ball on whatever the big political government leak secret things is. You know, so. That's enough preamble. Counsel, proceed with the Summation Examination. Yes, my lord. I like how he's holding the katana, or like, okay, I'm gonna pull this out and you're gonna believe me because I've cut you in twain.
Hold it!
Hold it! Just because Miss Lestrade has the history of pickpocketing, she must be guilty of murder, is that what you're saying? Ah, well... Are all members of the British Army so quick to judge? I beg your pardon. Are you mocking Her Majesty's Armed Forces, the greatest military organization in the world? No, I'm simply illustrating my point. Making assumptions about people because they're a soldier or a pickpocket is wrong and dangerous. Well, yes, might have a point there, I suppose. But let's not forget that the girl already shown her she had it in her from before. She's clearly a criminal sword through and through, can't deny it. That does not mean anything, my dude. You've only returned to the notion of she's a pickpocket, meaning she's a murderer. When you say that she'd known she had it in her, are you referring to this? Exactly, tried to swipe that only a day earlier, Or am I mistaken? Not exactly. Given that I was actually there at the time, it's hard to refute that. Yeah, but it doesn't... again... So... I put him on the spot saying that because she's a pickpocket must be a murderer, that would be wrong. And she's like, well, that's true, but she tried to take this music disc in yesterday, therefore she's a murderer. And I'm like... So pickpocket equals murderer is bad, but trying to steal a music disc equals murderer is correct, you're saying? Like, what? I've never actually seen the real thing. I can't wait to have a closer look at it. Oh yes, of course. Mr. Sholmes did use his caramel bars to make a copy of the disc, didn't he? And then ordered every type of music box he could find from across Europe. We still don't know what to tune it plays though, do we? But I'd love to see how the original compares to Hurley's copy. McGilded's disc. Could it be a clue somehow? Perhaps we should examine it in more detail. I mean, yeah, but I feel like we watched it a lot before. Do you wanna, actually... gun the blood here? Oh, Runo, look! This is blood! Yes, you're right. There's a small smear, but definitely blood. Actually, that's a good call to check at it, because I didn't realize that, oh right, Iris has never seen the thing, meaning we haven't been able to analyze the blood in the disc. True. Yep. Actually, I feel as though I might have noticed that before. Haha, then it's my time to shine again. I thought I'd be waiting forever. Alright, hold still with that disc, Runo. Can we get this done quickly, Iris? In a flash! Okay, so it's gonna be familiar from the case, please. Green again. So the blood on the calendar, meaning that blood isn't Sholmes's. Boom! There we are. Wait, that color. What is it? It's just that green. It's not the first time I've seen that color, is it? The blood samples portfolio has been updated. That's amazingly curious. Give it a quick look. There's nothing new here. Nope. I couldn't help but feel that the impressions on Hurlock's disc were different, but... I don't know. That just might be me. Like, these look more scrambled as Hurlock's disc looked a little more, like, symmetrical, sort of, if that makes sense. Oh well. I wonder if that's gonna... Like, when are we gonna get that into... Like, the only thing that's... Like, I have no idea when we're gonna be able to actually, like, use that, like, detail in the court now, you know?
Hold it!
Hold it! It's the number of bullets that has you convinced. Only 2 bullets were fired, and the guns that fired them have been examined by the police. When the parlor maid asks me how many are invited for dinner, I always tell her to count the table settings. Well, that's logical, I suppose. Although... Yes? Sometimes after dining, crockery does go missing. 1 or 2 guests rather like the fine china. Does her employer dine with thieves? So I suppose... If there was another bullet somewhere of which we were unaware... I'd have to reconsider my position. A 3rd bullet somewhere on the scene, could that be possible? This could be a leap that the game doesn't let me do yet. But the blood on the calendar is not Sholmes's, though. The blood on the calendar is from the dude who was trying to get the disc, I believe. Yes? Yeah. See? I can try that, but I don't know yet. Allow me to show you then the 3rd bullet.
Take that!
Take the portfolio! I don't suppose this would pass as the 3rd bullet. Okay. I mean, it is the 3rd bullet, though. We just have, quote-unquote, missed the 2nd one, or 1st one. Unfortunately, only 2 bullets were discovered by the police during their investigation. Yes, I know. Right. And I don't imagine the good men of Scotland Yard would have overlooked anything. Oh, that's what they do, though, my dude. My lady, I'm sorry. If I missed a bullet while I was cleaning his lordship's office, well, are there many bullets in his office, usually? I should receive a sound scolding, I don't doubt. And he should receive a visit from the police, perhaps. It sounds like a crime scene to me. A 3rd bullet. It would completely turn things around if there was one, wouldn't it? Do you think we might find one lying around somewhere? I mean, I have one, but the game doesn't give me the credit of finding one. It's, again, this... Don't need the stereoscope, this is the truth. Pickpocket, let's see. Hold it! So if I've understood correctly, you need 2 pictures. A left eye one and a slightly different right eye one. Exactly, then you can see the scene in 3 dimensions, like this. Wait. Are you asking... Okay, so if you have 2 bullets, for a hot second I thought we were glitched and we were using the wrong dialogue from the other Summation Examination because it didn't fit. So if we have 2 bullets, I don't suppose you can see anything useful with them. I think you'll find that no matter how much you squint, the truth of the situation always looks the same here. The only person who could have shot the victim is that girl in the dock. How can you be so sure of that? Think about it, the Skulking brothers shot the great detective, didn't they? That's been mentioned once or twice, yes. Well then, surely it's coming into focus now, isn't it? This is a waste of time. I'm not going to change this man's mind anytime soon. I never imagined that simple operation would cause me such grief.
Hold it!
Hold it! Would you please stop muttering about things that have nothing to do with this trial, sir? The defendant's life is on the line here. Well, the thing is, I couldn't really say that it has nothing to do with this trial, to be honest. Huh? I mean, there's no question that the man was shot, but the bullet had simply vanished from his stomach. It's quite inexplicable, don't you think? I almost don't want to ask, but this surgery you've been muttering about all this time, you were operating on Hurlock Sholmes? What was the fellow's name now? Hurlick? No, Hurlock? No, Hairlock. Hurlock Sholmes, by any chance? Yes, good lord. It was that Hairlock fellow. What? You're the surgeon that operated on Mr. Sholmes? That's right, using the very latest anesthesia techniques, I might add. It was a fairly major op, I can tell you. This is crazy. Let me see, the fellow was brought in not long after midnight, if I remember correctly. They said he'd been shot by some criminal or other, so I opened him up like a shot. But the funny thing is, I went over his insides with a fine-tooth comb and I couldn't find the bullet anywhere. So I'm afraid I had to throw up my hands and just stitch the fellow back up. I hate to state the obvious, but yes. Sure, that's because the bullet is still at the scene of the shooting. The counsel for the defense is correct, as is clearly shown in this photographic print. The bullet that the Skulkin brothers fired at Mr. Sholmes hit him in the stomach region, then it exited his body and lodged into the shop wall where the calendar was hanging by the door. I think you'll find it's really quite simple if you just consider the problem three-dimensionally. Ha! Who do you think I am, son? Well, juror number 4 is about the best I can do. As soon as I saw the wound on the man's stomach, I flipped him over. Like a pancake? Are you saying that you checked his back? Of course I did, and there wasn't a trace of injury. No sign that the bullet had left the body at all. What? That's the point. The only logical conclusion was that the bullet was still somewhere in the man's innards. Which is exactly why I said about slicing him up. And I'm still none the wiser even now. How many times do I have to say it? Can somebody please explain how it happened? Can somebody please solve the mystery? It's almost as much of mystery as how this jury was put together. Yep. Alright, let's pit the people together here. So you and you. Ballistics expert.
Objection!
Objection! Those two statements clearly contradict the idea that all I do is put jurors against each other. Hold on. Ooh, a ballistics expert. Pitting. Pit. On the night in question, Mr. Sholmes was shot by one of the Skulkin brothers. But since there was no sign of an exit wound on his back, we must assume that the bullet didn't pass through him. However, no bullet was found lodged in Mr. Sholmes' body either. Furthermore, a bullet was found lodged in the wall of the shop where Mr. Sholmes was shot. Juror number 6. Hello, my name is Villain. Pleased to meet you. This apparent contradiction in the facts that is so clearly troubling juror number 4. Are you able to explain the mystery? That is the question. I have seen very similar situation in Motherland. It was night, there was blizzard. I was running away along mountain road in freezing cold. Golly. The snow was piling high on both sides of the road. It was very narrow and dangerous. My pursuers had hunting rifles and they were on dog sleds. Mental note, don't ask too many questions. I was shot from behind and I fell down in snow. And this situation was very similar to what I hear today from Doctor. They could not find bullet in my body. And no sign of, how do you say, exit wound. Then where did the bullet go? Bullet never hit me. Well, if it never hit you, why did you fall down? Bullet hit frozen wall of ice very close to my side. What? One small piece, very sharp, broke away from lump of ice and pierced my body. It made deep wound that looks just like bullet wound. Good gracious. Of course, piece of ice quickly melted inside me. And that is solution to mystery of disappearing bullet. I don't remember seeing any ice sculptures in the... I don't know. But that doesn't answer the question at all. Hmm? The shooting happened in a pawnbroker's shop. Not some snowy mountain in another country. Just an idea, but we might not be looking at exactly the same scenario here. Runo. Where exactly was Hurley shot again? Well, according to the report, in his stomach. Sort of around this area, I think. This area. Sure. Well, that's precisely where he always wears a little pouch on his belt. A pouch? Actually, I might have noticed something like that. I've only noticed, like, his gun, and I think he carries, like, vials of stuff, but, okay. Yes, pouch. It's where he keeps the 3 glass yes, the glass vials is, yes, that much make, that, I've noticed that. Of very dangerous chemicals that he uses in his investigations. What? Really? Doctor, where is the pouch Mr. Sholmes was wearing? Well... Sorry. I tried to catch any coughing on mute, but that first one I think got through. I think some dust went in my throat or something. Ugh. The fellow had nothing like that on his person when he arrived at this hospital as far as I can remember. If I may. Lord Van Zeeks. While I realize that it is forbidden for the prosecution to interject during a summation examination, I should inform the defense that I have the pouch in question in the antechamber outside the courtroom. Sorry? As I understand it, when the police arrived on the scene and found Mr. Sholmes injured, they removed the pouch in order to assess the wound. Yeah. Ah, thank goodness. I thought I was getting forgetful for a moment. Since then, it has been in my safekeeping along with all other evidence relating to the case. I can personally vouch for the fact that it has not been touched since the incident occurred. Very well. While extremely unconventional during a summation examination, I must demand the prosecution presents the item in question with all speed. Bring forth Mr. Sherlock Sholmes' pouch! And that's not an innuendo! I think. I see. So this is the pouch worn by Mr. Sholmes on the night in question, is it? Look at that! One of the files is broken and the leather around it is very scorched black. It's almost as if the file exploded. Exploded? So, that night, the bullet from the Skulking Brothers' gun struck Mr. Sholmes' pouch. And it was the glass file exploding that caused the fellow's injury. This bullet did not penetrate victim, but was deflected into wall of shop. I don't think it was into the wall of shop, because, again, different blood, but good start, right? A delightfully complex aroma. Well, it would appear one mystery has been solved at least. Though it has no bearing on the truth of this case. The bungling and burgling brothers shot the detective, and the accused shot the pawnbroker. The pertinent facts of the case remain unaltered. Ugh. But at least the mystery is solved. I can sleep easy tonight. Thank you, young man. Da, thank you very much. Glad I could help. Due to its bearing on the conundrum just solved, the court will sequester this scruffy pouch as evidence. Hurley's pouch isn't scruffy. Sholmes' pouch has been entered into the court record. The pouch Mr. Sholmes was wearing around his waist at the time of the shooting. One of the glass files is smashed and there are scorch marks around it. Now, the Summation Examination. Okie dokie. Give me a quick moment to give a good look at this. Just get a good look at everything before we continue. It's really scorched badly just here. Oh, the strap is broken, look. This must be where the bullet hit it then. Let me see. We found the bullet, my dude! I doubt that Van Zieks didn't examine this, so, you know, I think he knew the bullet was here. What the? Iris, look! Behind where the broken file was, do you see it? Ah, that's... the Skulkin Brothers bullet! What a stroke of luck that it hit this pouch. This is an amazing discovery. What this means is, there were 3 bullets fired at Windybanks that night. We found exactly what that juror was talking about. The 3rd bullet. It's time to press that juror again, I think. I wonder if this leads to a 3-3 jury, because I've been wondering if that's the thing, you know? I think it should. That would be, I think, like a good development. It would appear that the defense is somewhat struggling to alter opinion, Please, my lord, a little more time. After all, that's a new piece of evidence. It could be a valuable clue, and you can't afford to overlook anything here, Unosuke. There's still a way to turn this around, somehow, I'm sure of it. Okay, press.
Hold it!
Okay, safety save because you cannot trust this game. Again, I think it was in the last case or whatever I presented the exactly correct piece of evidence, and it was and the game was like, no, that's wrong, and the game instead wanted the slightly wrong piece of evidence. It's so weird. I can prove it. Oh, I didn't think they actually just like brought the 3rd bullet into... Okay. This is the bullet that was fired from the Skulkin Brothers' gun on the night of the incident. Yes, so it turns out it never actually entered Hurley's body at all. Thanks to the thick leather of the pouch he was wearing, it saved him. Haha, Hurley's always lucky like that. Well, considering what he had to go through in hospital, I wonder how lucky he really was. Oh dear, poor Hurley. Right, anything else that's relevant? I don't think the, like, cursor changes in any specific spot. Oh. Present this.
Take that!
Take that! We found a bullet! It was in my pocket all along. That's how law works, right? Here it is. We discovered it just now. Yes! On the night in question, in Windybanks pawnbrokery, another bullet was fired. Hold it! What is this new trickery, you Nipponese conjurer? Where did you find that bullet? It was lodged inside Mr. Sholmes' pouch. What? These moments make me feel that Van Zieks is the least competent of all of the prosecutors in the Ace Attorney games. Because Edgeworth or Franziska or Manfred, and probably even Godo, would not have been surprised like this. Like,
I have this piece of evidence. I didn't look at it because I'm a moron.
like that doesn't happen with them. This pouch was removed from around Mr. Sholmes' waist before he was taken to the hospital, and since then it has been touched by no one. Do you mean to say the shot fired by the Skulkin Brothers that night? Yes. As your lordship has surmised, it hit this pouch. But that makes no sense whatsoever. We already know the whereabouts of the bullet fired at Mr. Sholmes. It's clearly visible in this photographic print. Ah! 2 guns from the scene have already been submitted into the court record as evidence. Yes, that of Mr. Windybank and that belonging to the Skulkin Brothers. And examination of both guns revealed that only a single bullet has been fired from each. I gotta also say about like the writing of this case. The Sulking brothers mentioned in no less than like I think at least 3 different lines. They mentioned that there was someone who was going to essentially butcher them if they squealed about what's going on, right? And no one in the courtroom has picked up on it, except for like Naruhodo, like in his mind, like, oh, maybe who are they talking about? Who are they speaking of? That's a very weird thing because multiple times otherwise the courtroom has picked up on like a very small one detail of one dialogue, you know, one line, like, oh, so you mean you know that then? So it's weird that we just like dropped it and or no one ever like picked up on that like at all. It's pretty silly. But that must mean that's right. We now know that on the night in question 3 bullets were fired. However, only 2 bullets were fired from the guns recovered from the crime scene. And until that incontrovertible inconsistency is somehow explained, we cannot and must not pass judgment. Akg. Alrighty. Order. While this summation examination remains incomplete, the court has been presented with new facts. Facts that would appear to shake the very foundations upon which the case against the defendant has been built. As is my prerogative in this situation, I hereby temporarily suspend the summation examination. By Jupiter! What? Bailiff, bring the witnesses back to the stand at once. Witnesses. Governor, were you listening to the proceedings while the defense carried out the summation examination? We was, Governor, we was. Perhaps we can dispense with the tedious preamble. Simply answer this one question. A 3rd bullet has been identified at the scene of the crime. What do you make of that? Make of it, Gov? I don't make nothing of nothing, I can't help it. Is it one of yours? God blimey, Gov, not a chance. In that case, did you have an accomplice? What? Never. The Sulking brothers work alone. It's just the 2 of us, that's a trademark. No, you've already begun with saying that there's 3 of you. And tried to put the inspector as the person who looks exactly like him. Nah. It's probably not Gregson, but point being that there's a 3rd brother, though. How soon we forget poor Sulky. Only 2 of the bullets from the crime scene originated from the firearms we have in evidence. That's not necessarily true, though. Like, they could have reloaded the gun in between. Like, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't have. The 3rd bullet was fired from another gun. No, not necessarily. Where is it? Lummy, that's an head scratcher. Counter for the defense. Yes? I should like to hear your thoughts regarding these new developments. The 3rd bullet and the mysterious missing firearm for whence it came. Thinking back over all the testimony we've heard and all the evidence we've seen, I think I'm starting to form a picture of what really happened that night. My lord, I think it's clear what this 3rd bullet tells us about the Sulking brothers. They had a secret accomplice. That's my take, yeah. On that night at Windy Manx pawnbrokery, the brothers must have been working with a 3rd man. Or woman. Just, you know, we don't know yet. The witnesses are clearly doing their best to cover up the existence of this accomplice. But the evidence all points to the fact that there was someone else present, someone carrying a gun.
Objection!
Objection! Listen, I mean, how drunk can you be during a trial, my dude? An accomplice, you say? Pigswell. These protracted proceedings have already forced us to endure 2 summation examinations. Well, they were necessary. What can I do for it? Do with that, my dude. Yet in all that time there has been not a murmur of a third man. If this apparently wraith-like being exists... Have you played Witcher? There's many wraiths in this world, like, you know. You just never know. Until you know. The court must be shown hard evidence. Without it, this fantasy will be crushed. I found a 3rd bullet. You idiot. That's your hard evidence. Like, you can't just, like, you know, we presented to you hard, irrefutable evidence that things do not add up at all. Like, the case falls apart. And then, you can't just, like, turn around with that and say that, like, oh, well, the court demands hard evidence to this thing. I'm like, you saw the hard evidence. You can't just disregard hard evidence by demanding hard evidence. Ah! Last morning, Sador completed the main game, and by the way, was good shit. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Did you have a good time with the final boss fighting? I enjoyed the final boss fight quite a bit on my last playthrough. I just danced around Erden and he didn't like hit me once, I think. I'm pretty sure I killed Erden without taking a single hit, yeah. It took a long time, but yeah. That was pretty good. Luckily, there's still a lot to do there, though, you know? The DLC things are big, long. Actually, I had to do it twice because I fucked to the State Matters quest first and didn't load. Couldn't let Radovid go. I see. That makes sense to me. That's, yeah, it's important to do that first. Yep. The prosecution demands answers on 2 counts. It changed the ending. Oh, I know. I don't think I've ever let him live, but it makes sense though, yeah. Firstly, proof, evidence that this accomplice was ever at the scene of the crime. And secondly, who it was. Wow! Wow, okay. Just bear with me on how crazy this demand is, right? Okay, so... we have just identified a 3rd bullet that breaks the entire case against our defendant apart. And somehow, through just theatrics of demanding stuff, the prosecution has now put on us that, well, then give us evidence that there was a 3rd person. And also, you need to identify that 3rd burglar from the 7 million people who live in London, assuming that person lives in London. So from the how many billion people were there in 1890, you know? From the hundreds of millions of Europeans, whatever, right? I identify the person out of nothing. We just gave you a bullet that broke your case. This is stupid. This is stupid, stupid, stupid. Come on. So it was kind of cool to see what happens if you let or don't let him live. Oh, cool. Oh, sure. I believe that. The Skulkins are lying. I know that. Yeah. But how could I identify the person from the millions upon millions upon millions of people possible? Come on. How can I ascertain the identity of the person there? Like, I'm not saying that Ace Attorney games don't have these moments. They do. Like, it's not dissimilar, but somehow this is even more outrageously what the hell at these points sometimes, you know? It's fun. I like the game, but the in-game like law logic is flimsier than ever in how against you it is, you know? And the judge just goes along with it. Yep. Right. Well, counsel? I'm supposed to prove the existence of this accomplice and reveal the person's identity, even. In response to the prosecution's demands, my lord, the defense is I mean, again, since the main game does have these moments of playing passive, this game so far has not. But I feel like there's gonna be a time when playing passive is the way to go. Like, how could I ever know who that is? The defense is unable to complete a sentence, it would seem. I mean, yeah, but then again, I broke your case already. It's not my job to identify who, from the millions upon millions of citizens, the third person was. That's the police's job, not mine. I just, like, gave credible evidence to say that there's a third person. Or at least a third gun. Much less provide any credible answers here. I provided credible answers.
Hold it!
What is this? So, just... Come on! I brought the third bullet which broke the prosecution's entire case, and the judge is... Okay, well, you broke the prosecution's entire case, but the prosecution demands you identify who the third person from the hundreds of millions of Europeans or the billions of people in the world was. You can't identify the person, so even though you broke the prosecution's case, I'm going to call guilty. Like, what the hell? Like, I know similar moments are in the mainline game, sort of, but this is probably the worst one of the entire game series, and that's saying something. This is like stupid dumb. Whoa. I haven't done. I saw your tweet, I think, or something about the enemy upscaling and the gen. I haven't tried that one, no. I can probably. I'll maybe get around to it at some point and see what you're talking about with it. Like, I'm proper good at Witcher 3 combat, so I'm hoping that it's pretty hard then. Good gracious, Council. Oh, unfair is fine. If it's doable, I'll do it. Like, I'm not good at many games, but I'm proper good at Witcher 3 combat. Good gracious, Council. I have to keep the momentum going here. I can't give up now. This is just like scientific research, if you ask me. Sorry. When you start doubting yourself and thinking you can't possibly work something out, you become blind. This is not my job. I provided the third bullet. It's the police's job to identify who that third bullet belongs to. Not mine. I presented credible, like, doubt that Gina is the guilty party here. And the court just, like, disregarded it. Like, we don't care, guilty, lol. I realize it's the 1890s, but come on. Yeah, I've seen you play. The biggest sense is evading and getting a little lucky to not get one shot. Yeah, sure. I mean, I've had situations like that with the glitched out second tier rot fiends. I forget the name of them, but yeah, you know, whatever they were. You know, I think there's a rot fiend, but slightly worse. I forget the name. Yeah, the exploding assholes, yes, but those were glitched in my playthrough in a way that they could, like, the explosion would kill you basically regardless of how far away you were. Yeah, so like I had to kill them from essentially beyond the hill in order to kill them. Like they needed to be like a physical, like a barrier between me and the enemy in order to not die to it. Like they would, like, from across and in, like, the next postcode, if the line of sight is there, they still killed me with the explosion. Through Quen, through everything. It was so glitched. So that took some doing. But yeah. Even though in truth the answer you're looking for is right there in front of you. The answer is right here in front of me. It was Iris all along! Yes. My lord, it was Iris, I'm sorry, and she's a minor, so we can't actually... We can't prosecute her. That's the play. Game just says, get better. Yeah, exactly. Actually, the defense would like to present answers to the questions posed by the prosecution. I'm actually curious that this is a case that it doesn't let you play passive, but... So, my Nipponese friend, despite the swimming eyes, you seem to think you have something to say. Valkyrie, hi! Welcome, I hope you've had an excellent... Unpunished. Okay, so we got at least we safety saved, right? But again, unfair does not begin to describe what happened here. Because all of this is just a farcical, like, this should be a mistrial immediately. The judge should be retired, the jurors should be changed, and the prosecution should also be retired. Like, none of these people are competent. I broke their case, and they just, like, you know, reduce my health and call guilty and whatever. So. But I hope you've had an excellent day, Valkyrie. Alright, since the game forces us to. The defense is ready. I believe I can provide all the answers the prosecution demands. So, my Nipponese friend, despite the swimming eyes, you seem to think you have something to say. This promises to be interesting. I have to push forward now, there's no other option. I need to use every single piece of evidence available to me if it will make a difference. In that case, counsel, I would ask you to present the evidence without delay. On the night in question, in the moments leading up to the death of the victim, what proof have you that there was a third intruder present? The third bullet, you fuck! Why does everyone, like, act like the third bullet didn't happen? Like, what? Okay, I'm gonna give the third bullet again because you're idiots!
Take that!
Third bullet! Yes! Perplex me! Third bullet! You idiot! Ah! How dumb can you get? I'm dying over here with this. Like, honestly, this game has been pretty okay with, like, the lack of logic in that it's small oddities, but this sequence is bonkers bad. Like, we broke their case, and the case should, like, I realize it's not a real trial. A real trial would not have, like, you know, the girl wouldn't have probably been even indicted yet, but even in Ace Attorney terms, I broke their case. Third bullet, it's over. And all of a sudden the courtroom just had like Men in Black flash amnesia and just like,
Oh, well, you must tell us like solve the case or it's guilty. Third bullet, smurd bullet.
fuck off. What? Mitä vitun vittua ihan oikeasti? This is deeply stupid.
Take that!
There's a lot of stuff to guess, but we gotta guess everything then. Like, this is bad. This is proper bad. I haven't seen a courtroom be this bad since Case 3 of Justice for All. That is still the worst one, but this is getting there. Ooh.
Take that!
Guess everything. I mean, I could walk through the thing, I suppose, to not waste time. Alright, blood samples portfolio, I'll take it, sure. It does make sense. I was thinking it should have probably been the blood samples portfolio or the disc or the bullet. Bullet, obviously. The disc because it holds the blood of the third person anyway, which we're thinking is the white-hatted boy. Or this thing because it has the blood of the white-hatted boy on the wall. But this question should never have been asked. Like, what in the actual hell? By Jove, that portfolio again, isn't it? Yes, it's my photographic portfolio. I'm gonna be a photographer. Do you expect the court to rifle through your papers itself? Be more specific. You can go just die in a fire. Like, you and your
I demand you identify the third person because it's somehow your job. Fuck off.
You claim one of those blood samples proves the presence of this third intruder. Well, which one is it? The thing is, it might end up being this one, though. Because this places the third person here, so I would like to present them both, but I can't, so, you know.
Take that!
Perplex Council. Yeah. Again, that's the actually correct answer, because that actually places a different person into the scene of the crime. If you want to show just one picture, I like to show them both, but I can't. Just showing the picture of the wall just shows, you know, blood that's identified green, whatever that means for them. That means nothing to them without the context of the music disc. If you can show only one picture, that one means nothing. So sorry. Again, the game demands the wrong answer.
Take that!
What am I looking at here? Your own ass. I don't even know, man. You have glasses, but I think you can't see through them. There appears to be some green paint or such like around the bullet hole in the middle of the calendar. That's a bloodstain, my lord. It's from the Incredible Hulk. A bloodstain. Green blood. Curious, even for you. Is the court to understand that the intruder was some unhuman creature? Well, his fashion sense is about that level, so sure. It's something developed by Mr. Sherlock Sholmes. By the great detective. New invention stop, not yet appeared in story stop. It's this, you see. It doesn't have a name yet, though. It's the blood gun. This fogger sprays a chemical that reacts with the different elements in people's blood to change its color. Different elements of people's blood, and this, if this is gonna be admitted as evidence, it's gonna be in our favor, but god damn. That wouldn't quite... Okay, so this 10-year-old girl invented a blood gun, and therefore it's good evidence, because it identifies blood. That's a Jedi mind trick right there, my dudes. Yes, everyone's blood is slightly different, you see, because it's made up of different elements. So by seeing what color it changes to, you can tell in a flash whose blood it is. Oh, that brings a whole extra dimension of looking at blood. Yes, let's look at blood the entire week, and we'll just, like, walk out of the courtroom, yeah? Talk of blood in courtroom. Very exciting, sure. As an example, this one shows the blood of the victim, Mr. Windybank. Windybank had blue blood, meaning he's a cephalopod, I think? They have blue blood, right? Ah, a striking blue. Yeah, so we see the green color of this bloodstain on the calendar shows that somebody else was shot in the main part of the shop. Now hold fire there, young man. Could be from some unrelated incident, couldn't it? No, it's not unrelated. The date showing on the calendar is the date on which Mr. Windybank was killed. By golly! Therefore, we can assume that whoever was shot on the same day. Then whose blood is it? Well, the Skulkin brothers in the stand don't appear to be suffering from any gunshot injuries. Which means it must be the blood of somebody else. The third intruder, in fact.
Objection!
Objection!
Whose identity the court is still waiting to hear? That is such a weird demand that it doesn't make any sense. You can't delay this any longer, my learned friend. Who is this alleged third intruder? I mean, this is weird because... Sorry. Because we could literally name anyone that's not Windybank or the victim in that different case. So it could be Susato. It technically could be Hurley, but not really. It could be Iris. Or it's gonna be Eggert. But like, we could name anyone. Anyone. But, alright.
Take that!
Take that. The man's name is Eggert Benedict. Eggert Benedict? Who on earth are you talking about, Consul? He played Doctor Strange in that one movie. He paid a visit to Windybank's pawnbrokery on the afternoon before the incident took place, when the accused attempted to deceive the pawnbroker into releasing this article into her possession. That's right. The man identified by the defense, Mr. Eggert Benedict, then attempted to take the article from the defendant by force. Broker. Yes, sir. I believe this filthy pocket thief has just redeemed an article from you, no? Yes, the article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once. Now that's a lie. What are you trying to pull? Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel, and needless to say... Any music box discs too. Actually, he does do the same dancing tricks that the... well, similar than what the Slinkin brothers do, though. That's actually true. Sort of. Inspector Gregson was there at the time and can attest to what happened. In the end, it was the inspector himself who took the disc. Can you corroborate this account, Inspector? Yes, my lord, that's more or less what happened. And in the interest of being thorough, I asked Windybank for a print showing the fellow. Taken from one of his red-handed recorder gubbishness. Yes, that's him talking to Mr. Windybank that morning. And you claim this man is the brother's accomplice. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Skulkin. Never seen the geezer before in my life. All my life, Gov, all my life. Never seen him. Well, somewhat unsurprisingly, it appears our witnesses disagree with the assertion. I'm sure your lordship recalls my learned Nipponese friend's actual assertion, which was that he could prove the identity of the alleged accomplice. Yes, and I can. Then show us the evidence. I agree, we must see proof that the clean-cut gentleman in the photograph is the filthy criminal you say he is. I mean, disc. The disc. The disc. Or the picture of the disc. This is the last piece of evidence. I've had a feeling that something has been missing in this trial from the very start. But now, I'm going to drag it kicking and screaming into the courtroom. Are you ready to present your answers to the court then, counsel? Yes, my lord. The defense will present the evidence now. Proof that the man pictured in this photographic print was in fact the person struck by the third bullet. Blood samples portfolio. Honestly, the game is so stupid that I'm gonna just safety save.
Take that!
Take that. That proof is right here in this portfolio. Good gracious, counsel, does the portfolio contain the answers to every question posed? I see you share my interest in claret-colored liquids, my Japanese friends, but... Enough, the court demands to see further evidence. No, you demand. You are not the court. Which blood sample proves the man you identified as the one shot by the third bullet at the scene of the crime?
Take that!
Take that. As I mentioned before, on the afternoon of the day in question, the defendant attempted, deceitfully admittedly, to reclaim this disc from Windybanks. Which is when the aforementioned Eggert Benedict appeared on the scene, I believe. This man then attempted to purloin the article from the defendant's possession, no? That's correct, my lord. I myself was present at the time. It was following this that minor incident occurred. But of course, sir, here's the disc for you. Very well. I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to your style. Wait a minute, that disc is mine. Ah, how do you think you're doing, little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal. Being a music box disc, it has countless small but sharp metal protrusions over its surface. Those protrusions cause Mr. Benedict's finger to bleed, and the resulting smear of blood is still visible on the disc now. Goodness, a bloodstain, is it? My assistant and I have just analyzed the bloodstain here in this very courtroom, using my trusty blood gun. Yes, and we added the results to this portfolio. I say, it's green. It's exactly the same color as the blood around the calendar. I just, how many colors of the spectrum can we use to identify blood? Like, if everyone has different blood, there's, what, 2 billion people, right? 1890s, a billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, less than today, but still, like, the world has plenty of people, yes? Hundreds of millions, by the very least, but at this point, yes? How many colors can we, like, with human eyes identify as different, just saying? Like, if you're green, I'm blue, that one's red, this is purple, that's white, this is gray, that's black. Eventually you're gonna run out of colors, and what then? Like, this is kind of, The evidence is conclusive. The blood gun of the 10-year-old girl next to me says so. And the court is just gonna accept that, and that's fine, yes? I don't... What can you do? The man calling himself Mr. Eggert Benedict, who was in Windybanks earlier in the day, is the accomplice who was present at the scene of the crime that same night. So there was someone there. Look at the brothers now, they're sweating buckets. They've been doing that all day. My lord, it is the opinion of the defense that Mr. Eggert Benedict should be summoned to the courtroom to testify. Or arrested and convicted and such. It would certainly seem that we can ill afford to ignore this gentleman's apparent presence.
Objection!
Objection! This has gone on long enough now, this flagrant ignorance of the mechanics of law. Sherlock Sholmes, you say? Yes, I've heard the name. The protagonist in a series of short stories for the vulgar classes, a god of detection or some such. And now you employ chemical substances devised by this fantastical persona in the highest court in the land. Honestly, I have disagreed with him on most points today, but that one, he's on point though. That much I do agree with. Do you expect us to take you seriously? The samples made by this plaything are not fit to be called evidence. So the bloodstain turned a shade of green. What of it? Here's to you successfully proving that no other blood in the world would turn the same color. Ah, well, the fact does still remain that there is no accounting of why that blood's there, because it's not Hurlock's, because Hurlock didn't get shot there, and the bullet is not from Hurlock either, so, you know. So, his logic there is sound, but he's also ignoring the obvious facts that the third bullet presented anyway, so. And pray, do not even think of suggesting that we should take Mrs. Shum's word for it. I mean, I agree with him on that specific point as well. I knew it would come to this. Of course, Mr. Shum's invention isn't going to be recognized by any official body, but what other choice did I have? I'm just remembering what Father Christmas over there said before. I'm so glad that Iris recognizes that, that the judge is Santa Claus. About how he was temporarily suspending the summation examination. In other words, the examination isn't over yet, is it? Good grief. What did you just say, young girl? And in a summation examination, the decision as to whether or not the trial continues is in the hands of the 6 jurors, isn't it? So the way I see it, it doesn't matter what certain other people think of Hurley's invention. At least, not for now. Yes, she's right. Young lady, you have quite the devious mind. It really just comes down to one thing. Whether these ladies and gentlemen of the jury are convinced by what you say, Runo. Is that about right, would you say, or did I misunderstand something?
Unbelievable.
Mr. Shum's partner is a force to be reckoned with. Iris Wilson, sharpshooter. As that shrewd priestess of the situation from an entirely unexpected source, it must be acknowledged that the previous summation examination has yet to reach its conclusion. This is absurd. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court now looks to you for final leadings in this matter. As proud citizens of Her Majesty's Britain, I'm sure you will come to a fair and just conclusions. Is the... Juror 6 isn't a citizen of Great Britain, though, yes? I don't think he is... Like, he keeps saying that Russia is motherland, which, I mean... has he gotten citizenship, though? He said he's just visiting, though, right? So then, state your final decisions in turn, please.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
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 Not guilty.
Interesting. 2 call guilty and 4 call not guilty. Such is the outcome of the summation examination.
Objection!
Objection! My lord, with all due respect, this is an outrage. The prosecution refuses to accept this decision. On what grounds? If these jurors are persuaded by some half-baked concoction devised by a pretender of real police work, no. Van Zeeks, not 15 minutes ago, you turned from 2-4, I believe, in the jury, into 6 guilty again, by simply reinstating, but she's a pickpocket and therefore a criminal and therefore must be guilty. And they were all like, huh! So, half-baked concoction, you don't got a word to say on that, my dude. You gave no reason why she did it. None.
This disc here is the thing she tried to steal, therefore she's a murderer. Like, in an unrelated incident, she tried to steal this disc, therefore she's a murderer.
So, yeah, no, sorry. Like, I like his style, but his logic as a prosecutor doesn't hold. Like, he's constantly projecting his own antics onto me, and that's kind of lame, you know? And he constantly makes just these amateurish, weird, bad mistakes, like not finding the third bullet in evidence that he's holding. Like, okay. Then they are too ignorant to be trusted with the judgment of anyone's guilt. That's true of every jury, though. Sorry. I'm sorry, Lord Van Zieks, but the outcome of the Summation Examination cannot be ignored. This trial will continue. Nevertheless, we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. The defense has very reasonably requested the subpoena of a new witness. But sadly, I fear that will be impossible. What? The name of the gentleman gave for himself, Egert Benedict, is quite clearly false. I don't believe it. Just when I'd managed to prove the man was there at that night. Could I say something? Who was that, please? Who spoke? Unless the dude himself is in the court, maybe Gregson. Oh, no, okay. It was me, my lord. Juror number 5. What have you to say, madam? If possible, Inspector. Me, madam? I wonder if you might show the photographic print to me again, the one in which the gentleman is shown. Ah, right, yes, this one you mean. Of Mr. Benedict. And she just knows him. The endless coincidences are just like piling up upon piling up. It's great. There's no doubt in my mind. Juror number 5, you don't mean to say you know this man? Yes, I know him. What? No. Good gracious. Order, order. Juror number 5, how on earth? I'm a communications officer, stop. As we can clearly see. The gentleman in the photograph is... Stop. Well, can we subpoena Mr. Stop? It might be important, you see. Also a communications officer, stop. He works in my office, stop. A very talented operator, in fact, stop. He should be in the communication station now, stop, tapping away on the telegraph, stop. This doesn't seem right somehow. I can't put my finger on why, but it doesn't feel right. I suppose we all imagined the accomplice would be some sort of hardened criminal. It's a bit unexpected to find that he has a respectable job by day, whatever he gets up to at night. Yes, I suppose that's it. I suppose that's why I felt something was wrong. If the gentleman is at London's communication station, we should be able to subpoena him within the hour. Lord Van Zieks, if you please. Yes, my lord. Make necessary arrangements with all haste. As your lordship bids. The court will recess for 1 hour. When the new witness arrives, we shall reconvene to hear the gentleman's testimony. Inspector Gregson. Yes, my lord. I should like to hear from you specifically about events at the pawnbrokery on the day in question. Come to my chambers during the recess. Yes, sir, my lord. Very well. Court is adjourned until 1:40 p.m. Whew, that is a long section of court, but that is indeed a to be continued. So, if you are watching this on YouTube, I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, please do drop a like. It would mean the world to me. And if you'd like to see more, do please subscribe, because it would just make my day, and I promise it would genuinely help, and just make all of this worth it. But I hope you've enjoyed, and see you in the next bit of this case. Have a good one.